The Courageous Coaching Podcast is hosted by Sophia Antoine, a certified life coach supporting women in their efforts to improve their self-esteem. Today we're talking about life, relationships, and everything in between. Take it away, Sophia.
Now, welcome to another episode of the Courageous Coaching Podcast. My name is Sophia Antoine. I am a life and relationship coach. With me today, I have the awesome, magnificent, stupendous Sherry Thompson. She is a social worker turned entrepreneur, and she has contributed to the anthology, The Smell of Poverty by Shannon Griffin. And you guys are familiar with Shannon by now because she has been on, 3 or 4 episodes strong by now? So you guys are familiar with Shannon. So Shannon, thank you so much for lending Sherry to me today.
Yes, thank you so much for having Sherry.
You too. I mean, I'm always glad to have you. You're awesome and you're amazing. But Sherry, you're the new kid on the block today. So go ahead and introduce yourself because I'm sure I didn't do you any justice by that little title that I just gave.
So my name is Sherry Thompson, and I was drawn to Shannon because she was going live talking about poverty, and it's a part of my history too. And as she was introducing this project and talking about the smell of poverty and being a social worker, that really drew my attention because there's, we don't talk about poverty very much, and it's super important. There are so many people who are affected by it, and especially women and children. And so that really spoke to my heart because I was that single mom once upon a time, and struggled in poverty to get an education, and then became an educator, and I guess I'm skipping a little bit, but I got a bachelor's degree in social work. I went to work at a community college and then had an opportunity to advance my career by getting more education, and did so. I became a counselor and loved doing that. I especially loved working with single moms who were, coming back to school to find a little hope in their life. And then about 2 years ago, I decided that, school kind of sometimes is a slow option for people. Not everybody has that time to, especially with the welfare laws. One thing that I didn't talk about in the book really is the welfare reform and how that's impacted women's ability to get an education. So, if anybody who might be familiar with the welfare reform, when you talk about giving somebody 24 months to get their life together when their life is in shambles, that really, it's not much time. And when you talk about a woman working 35 hours a week and then going to school on top of that, it's just not realistic. And so that's kind of some of the challenges that I've seen women trying to go to school struggle with, and the reason I decided entrepreneurship might be a better way for me to support women who are, trying to provide for their children and trying to get out of poverty. So poverty is definitely a conversation that we need to be having, and that's why I'm excited to be a part of the book. And I'm so thankful that I met Shannon, and it was her going live all the time and talking about the smell of poverty. I'm like, now, wait a minute, who is this woman and why is she talking about this? This is awesome. And what does she mean? And so I'm glad she started the conversation. And I'm glad, Miss Sophia, that you decided to support that conversation through your interviews of the authors. We really appreciate that so much.
Thank you. I'm so glad to have you because, honestly, I knew it was a problem, just like everybody knows it's a problem. But you just don't know what to do, so you do nothing. It's kind of like analysis paralysis. You do nothing.
Right.
So, same with you. I mean, Shannon and I go back, and Shannon goes live about every single thing all of the time. But for whatever reason, this is what caught my ear, and this is what caused me to act, and this is what made me offer my platform. So thank you so much, Shannon, because you have brought to the forefront something that we all kind of sweep under the rug.
Right.
How do you feel knowing that?
And again, thank you for having me and Sherry here. But I think it's definitely refreshing, if you will, if you can think about that. It's refreshing because it's one of those things everybody has there, and it's sitting there, and it's kind of like that pile of stuff you got sitting over there in the corner, and it needs to come out. And when someone brings it out and brings it up to the forefront, it just makes it so that it relieves a lot of the stress and pressure that you have on yourself.
Right. It's like hiding it. Like Hoarders. It brings me to the mindset of that show, Hoarders. They have all of this stuff in the house behind closed doors, and then somebody sees it, and it's like it's a combination of relief and fear, because now that they've seen it, I have to do something about it. But what can I do about it? Because I don't want more people to see it. So That's awesome. Sherry, you really touched me, because not until you just said that did I realize that when I was a single mom in school. Let's backtrack. I had my first child when I was, how old was I? I got pregnant at 14, had my first child at 15.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So I graduated high school on time and everything, but I kind of delayed going to college. And I recently got actually 2 degrees in the last 2 years. But you're right, that welfare system doesn't accommodate a working parent. It didn't give me a lot, even though I wasn't on the monetary assistance, so I guess I didn't have that 24-month time frame, but I still had the food assistance. I still had to, give them my paycheck stubs, and I still had to do all of these other things and abide by their rules, and it made it difficult for me in the jobs that I could have, because it seems to me that they give you this amount of money that you can make, or you make too much money to get assistance.
Right.
And it's like, you guys say I'm making all this money, but I don't see it because I'm paying bills with it. So is it really mine? I mean, is that what you saw when you were doing social work? And Shannon, if you wouldn't mind, after Sherry answers, if you could chime in too, because I know you do social work as well. So what is it you guys see when people really want to do stuff, and they really want to make their lives better and better for their children, and the system kind of handicaps them, so to speak?
Absolutely. Well, I want to back up just a little bit with my story, because, I was a single mom going to school. I was 30 when I decided to go back to school. I was not, education wasn't important in my family. What was important was working hard. But you can't work hard at a low wage job and get ahead, and still not make enough money to get ahead. So, with my particular story, when I decided to go back to school, and it definitely was a struggle, but I just decided I couldn't get ahead any other way. So I started back to school. And so I found the jobs program, and this was, I'm trying to think how many years ago. Well, my youngest son is 30 and he was 2 then. So, child care assistance I had, transportation assistance I found after I ran out of gas on the way home. Those kinds of things where you're digging through the couch looking for change to go to school, that was a very real thing for me.
Right.
And ran out of gas on the way home. I had about a 45-minute commute from school to my home, and I live in Western North Carolina, so that's part of the reason I wanted to tell the story, because we think about poverty in the inner cities, but we don't realize that there are whole pockets of people out in rural areas that we aren't even in the conversation. So that's why I wanted to be a part of that conversation. But anyhow, you run out of gas on the way home, and as a stranger, like I had to get in the car with a man that I did not know. And luckily he did take me to the gas station. And when I got there and I had $2 worth of change to buy gas, he filled the tank up the rest of the way, so that I would have enough gas to get home on fumes. So those are the kinds of things that happen to people trying to be in school. And after that experience, I shared that with someone, and they told me about the jobs program, which helped me with mileage, which was huge. Like, that was a deal maker for me, that suddenly I had gas and I didn't have to dig through the couch anymore. And so now those programs are not in place that same way. As welfare reform came through, no longer could people have a long range plan. My idea of becoming a social worker was so that I could help people in need, and share my experience in a positive way. And so you think about now, women can't have a long plan. That was considered a long plan because it was 4 years. And, now women have to have like a plan that's short so they can be a CNA. They can, CNA, that's challenging work, and you're still not going to make a significant amount of money, but they have to choose something very short term. And although being a daycare worker, a CNA, all of those are honorable things to be doing, they're not really money income producing. It puts them in that working poor class where you never build wealth, you never own a house, you never get ahead. So those are kind of some of my concerns for people going back to school now, people living in poverty. And I can't tell you how many times I have been in a restaurant, because I am, young people, college age, it's just kind of my people, So if I'm in a restaurant and we have a waitress, I'll ask them about, what are your hopes and dreams? What do you want to do after this? And you always find out that they are working at night, their child's at home, their child may be with grandma, but this waitress is working until 2:00 in the morning, so how can we expect that mama to be involved with homework, school activities? If we just keep putting people in the service related industry, they might make a living, but they're not making a life. And so that's kind of my concern. Is you think about those kids who are not getting to play in sports because mama's working. They're not able to have help with their homework. Their mom is setting this example of being gone. And meanwhile, if the child's acting out at school, then the school system has something to deal with too. So all of that impacts our society.
Awesome. And it seems like it's just perpetuating a cycle.
Absolutely.
So Shannon, is that what you see as well in your area? I know you're out in California.
Yeah. And I would agree with that, the whole 24-month thing. And time has come along that things are changing, and they're trying to go back. Now legislation has passed where they have moved to where parents don't have to report any changes necessarily for 2 years. So now they're giving them 2 years to be on a program. They don't necessarily have to tell if they changed income or anything to that degree. And if they do make any changes, now they have it so that if I come in and I have what's called a family fee, so if I have to contribute some costs to the care, I could still continue to get more services in hours, but they will not increase the family fee, even if I'm making more money. So it's kind of at a point of enrollment, whatever it is that you're doing, that's all they're going to do. They're not going to look at anything, change anything. They will give you more hours. So it's to the benefit of the parents. So, but I feel the same way. It's not enough time. We have families that come in and they have multiple children, and trying to be here and there and going to this provider and that provider, trying to get there, their own public transportation. And it's really, really difficult to be able to do things. So we have it to the point when they come in the door, filling out the paperwork and sitting there is very time consuming and very difficult for them to do. So I definitely agree with that. It's just no way, and it's harder for them, even though we think that it's a program to help, but it's really kind of breaking kids and families apart in the sense of there's no time. There's no time to put that quality of care for the children when you have to have these requirements that you have to do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So Sherry, at what point, or what was the breaking point where you said, I'm